Welcome to the Planning Advisory Committee of Thursday, August 29th. Call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. We'll now proceed with item number 2, approval of the agenda. That the agenda for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of August 29th, 2024 be approved as presented. Do I have a mover? Leanne, and seconder? Mayor Shankar, all in favor? Motion carried. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? No. Item 4 is a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. I have a recommendation that the Planning Advisory Committee minutes dated June 20th, 2024 be accepted as presented. Do I have a mover? James, and a seconder? Mayor Shankar? Is there any discussion on the minute? No? All in favor? Motion carried. Item number 5. 5.1 is a PIC report 15-2024 regarding a CIP application for the downtown area located at 107 King Street West, Miss Vicky's Variety. The recommendation reads that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the Community Improvement Program application 2024-13 in full for 107 King Street West under the downtown area to a maximum of $8,000 in non-repayable property improvement grant funding and up to the greater of $1,000 or 10% of applicable permit fees. Can I have a mover? Leanne, and a seconder? James, for discussion purposes. Dana Valentine will speak to the report.
Thank you, Terry Young. New to the committee, we have a request for funding before you to support a new business that will be opening at 107 King Street West, which you'll probably be familiar with the former business that just relocated, which was Curls and Cuts. So this is the property immediately west of O'Heafey's on the south side of King Street. And it's an exciting new business concept. Business name is Miss Vicky's Variety, but that really doesn't begin to encompass what she'll be actually selling there. It'll really be more of a community grocery store. So she's looking at convenience items as well as having fresh foods, including produce, fresh meats, dry goods, really the whole gamut of options for people. And if you're familiar or live within the downtown area, I can certainly attest to the fact that we do have a significant food gap in the downtown right now. Since the closure of the convenience store, it used to stock just a very minimal supply of grocery goods. There is nowhere to buy a loaf of bread after 9 p.m. in downtown Prescott. And that's a significant gap that this business will fill because she's actually committed to staying open until 11 p.m. every day. She's going to have extended hours, really wants to serve the business community. And she has just a few renovations to complete. The signage being one of the biggest, and the sign mock-up has been included in the application package for your review. It meets all requirements. Also has some interior improvements to complete, including some repainting, upgrading some electrical, and construction of new built-in counters and shelving to optimize the layout of the space. And the request is for up to $8,000 in grant funding, as well as $1,000 in permit fees, and other eligibility requirements have been met for this project. So we're recommending full approval of that application today.
Thank you, Dana. Is there any discussion on 5.1? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment, actually, and welcome to the new owner, Miss Vicky's Variety. I mean, what a great addition to our downtown. And, Dane was speaking about, can't buy a loaf of bread after 9 o'clock. So she's really going to fill the gap. And I think it's an excellent addition. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
Also to that end, if no one knows this applicant, she's run a few different like gas stations and stuff like that. So she has the experience. So I think she'll do well. She knows what we need.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll now call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. Item 5.2 is PAC Report 16-2024 regarding a CIP application for 126 King Street West, Ben Kenville Property Guys. The recommendation reads that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the Community Improvement Program application 2024-14 in full for 126 King Street West under the downtown area to a maximum of $1,500 in non-repayable property improvement grant funding. And I have a mover and a seconder for discussion. Leanne? Mayor Shankar? Dana?
Thank you, Terry Young, through you to the committee. We have an application from Property Guys located at 126 King Street West. Application is for signage only. The business owner would like to replace the projecting sign that hangs over the sidewalk. It's, the existing one was installed back in 2017. It's aging, fading quite a bit, and he'd like to upgrade it with his new branding. There's also been a rebranding of the company since that time. So he'd like to bring that in line with the updated branding. And it's a request for a maximum of $1,500 in non-repayable grant funding. The applicant, you may be familiar, has applied to and received funding through this program before as the building owner. He also operates a Airbnb on the second and third stories of the property and has received funding through the previous version of the CIP program to support some of those renovations. Also received funding back in 2018 under the previous iteration of the CIP program to support some commercial renovations that were done inside the property, which would support Property Guys, but that was 6 years ago, which is well within the 36-month or 5-year requirement for reapplying for funds for the same property. So definitely meets all eligibility requirements, and the sign mock-up certainly meets design guidelines. So we're recommending full approval.
Thank you, Dana. Is there any discussion? No? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Motion is carried. 5.3 is PAC Report 17-2024 regarding a CIP application for 425 Center Street, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. The recommendation reads that the Planning Advisory Committee approve Community Improvement Program application 2024-15 in full for 425 Center Street under the Heritage Conservation Area to a maximum of $9,000 in non-repayable property improvement grant funding. Can I have a mover and a seconder for discussion? James and seconder Leanne. Dana?
Thank you. We have a heritage category application, which is always exciting to see. Downtown tends to be the majority of applications, and this one comes from St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. They have run into some issues with their HVAC system. It requires upgrades at a very significant cost. Total project is valued at $60,000. It is a full replacement of the system, and I'm sure, as you can imagine, with a property that large, you need a serious HVAC system to keep that hot and cold. So they've requested the maximum of funding available, which is $9,000 in the non-repayable grant funding. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with this property or has spent some time in this facility, either attending an event or some sort of a community program. It's a very active property that hosts a lot of different activities throughout the year, is home to concerts, community programs, and has really become a vital community service provider. And without that, it would be a real gap for a lot of agencies that depend on that for use. It is also the only accessible facility of its type that can offer full accessibility and use, which is another reason why they do have a lot of different user groups that have taken advantage of that space. So it would not only support the church operations, but many other users. And we're recommending full approval of the request tonight.
Thank you, Dana. Any discussion or questions?
I have one question. The previous upgrades, was that a CIP funding at all?
No, this property has never received CIP support.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll now call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. Item 5.4 is PAC Report 18-2024 regarding a CIP application for 178 King Street East. The recommendation reads that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the Community Improvement Program application 2024-16 in full under special conditions for 178 King Street East under the downtown area to a maximum of $22,000 in non-repayable property improvement grant funding and a maximum of $100,000 in loan funding repayable at 0%, not exceeding 50% of eligible costs, up to the greater of $1,000 or 10% of applicable permit fees, and an amount to be determined under the tax increment grant category. Can I have a mover and a seconder for discussion purposes? Mayor Shankar? Leanne? Dana?
Thank you, through you to the committee. This application does certainly require a little bit of explanation for the committee. We've received a request from what is currently known as Populares Restaurant located at 178 King Street East. The owner purchased the property several years ago, has been operating the former Populares there and intends to rebrand to Milano Pizzeria and also complete a number of renovations to the property, including replacing all of the exterior windows, all new siding, exterior facade, and he is also looking at adding an accessible ramp to the outside. So they've requested full funding under the program. The special condition that was referenced under the recommendation speaks to the property taxes. Unfortunately, the property taxes are not current for the property. So as I'm sure you're aware, one of the key eligibility requirements is that property taxes, water, sewer remain in good standing upon approval and throughout the term of the project. So we are recommending approval because the application itself is merited, and the work that's being proposed to be done, I think everyone could agree that it's certainly required and would go a long way to improving that building, which is also one of the first buildings that you see at the Eastern Gateway to the community, and would certainly make a huge difference in the overall appeal of the downtown as you're entering. And what we are recommending is that the committee provide conditional approval, whereupon no monies are flowed to the applicant until their taxes are brought into good standing. And we would continue to monitor that throughout the period of the project to ensure that if they did become delinquent at any point, money would stop flowing, loans would potentially be recalled if they couldn't be caught up within an acceptable time period, and the project would essentially be terminated. I recognize this is a significant exception to request from the committee, but there are some other circumstances tied to this project. If the applicant is approved for CIP funding through this committee, that would give them the ability to tap into some additional funding that could be utilized to bring their taxes into current standing. And that's why we're also recommending approval of this, because it would essentially bring their taxes into good standing, which of course the town wants to see, and would also result in these improvements being completed, which would certainly support the mandate of the CIP program and the focus of the council in the downtown. So that's what we're bringing forward for consideration tonight for this property.
Thank you, Dana.
Happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there will be some.
Okay, I guess I'll start. So can you just explain what the additional funding is first?
So there's a loan program through the Community Futures Grenville that's been made available to all approved CIP applicants. Once you're approved for CIP funding, you're now eligible to apply for CF Grenville loan program up to $100,000. And those, we're very restrictive in what those our loan and grant funds can be spent on. certainly any funds that we issue cannot be used to pay off property taxes. That would essentially be us, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So they can utilize CF Grenville loan funding for essentially any business related expense because those funds have to be paid back to CF Grenville. And they would essentially be able to use a portion of those funds to bring their taxes up into good standing and then have additional loan funds available through CF to use toward their project. The purpose of the CF Grenville loan, they had approached us about a year ago looking to partner specifically with the town on this program because they're trying to support the broader revitalization of the downtown and support business at the same time. And they were, very open to supporting this and providing matching funding essentially to provide the applicant with bridge financing. Because as you'll all know, we have to see proof of expenses before we can start flowing funds. So anyone who receives funding is in a situation where they have to come up with their 50%, essentially the full 100% of their expenses, pay them, submit those expenses to the town, wait for reimbursement. And that's why this Grenville loan program is such a great complement, because now that provides them with that bridge financing that they need to start expensing the project and float them some capital essentially so that they can start drawing funds from the town program.
Okay, thank you. And it's really no different than getting Uncle Leo to lend you some money.
Exactly, or that individual going to a traditional bank for financing.
So my second question, if I may, so we've had some issues with them with their sign.
With the sign in the past, yes.
Do we believe that they're gonna be better with this?
Absolutely, and we have attached the new mock-up for the sign and have confirmed that it meets all requirements. It has the raised lettering that's required, it has the external lighting, and the existing signs would be completely removed. So this is not proposing to modify the existing signs to bring them into compliance. They would be taken off the building and replaced with brand new signs. And then the facade would be totally renovated as well. They would add new siding, combination of black with beige color, very tasteful. It will totally change the look of that building.
And Dana, they didn't ever receive CIP funding for that first sign, right?
No, that was the problem essentially. And we have been working with this property owner for several years, trying to encourage them to apply for CIP funding to support the previous sign. And unfortunately, they decided to finance it themselves. And that's why we ran into an issue where it was non-compliant. Because we were able to catch these things through the CIP program.
Okay, Leanne?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a time frame for them to be paying off their taxes? I mean, this is just a little bit of a hiccup in my opinion, but I'm also a little bit cautious as well because we have not had a good start to that business when the owners took over. But if you're going, you can get that loan, pay off the taxes, and then start.
So upon approval, they can immediately go to CF Grenville, and to my knowledge, they are able to flow loan funds fairly quickly, like within about 30 days, I would say probably at the most. I would say, again, I would look to Matthew, if it was the desire of this committee to include a condition where they wanted it paid within a certain amount of time, or that approval basically is terminated, maybe we could look at that. And then they would still always be required to keep them current throughout the term of the project. But it would at least maybe light a bit of an additional fire for them to get on this and not sit on this approval and make sure that those taxes are cleared up, say, well, within whatever timeframe the committee desire.
Dana, can you remind us again how long you have to utilize the grant funding before it's not available anymore?
24 months.
Okay.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Question, maybe it's relevant or not. Do we have any history on this new owner that's built? You just occupied it for the last 2 years. Does that person have any business experience prior to purchasing and operating that business that's currently in Prescott?
To my knowledge, they have owned commercial properties and
Okay.
tenant properties in the past. As far as business ownership, I'm not familiar with their past business experience. They do own another property in town that is actually coming forward for funding tonight as part of this meeting, yes.
Okay. So,
In a similar situation.
so bringing up the second question then, based on money being so tight for tax reasons and their lack of, business, maybe experience, should the town waive caution again with regards to this funding? Because maybe there's a lot of unpredictable things that can happen. And they've already tried for 2 years. And yes, I thought it was a new owner taking over, like a new business owner.
Opening the Milano.
But it's not, it's the existing owner just rebranding.
Yeah.
And unless they change their business practices, which I can't see happening, okay.
They might,
And I think-
might have to though as a franchise.
Mhm.
They're not too strict, Milano. They're not like a pizza or anything like that, but yeah, you're right.
And I think that is an attempt on their part to bring an elevated product to their customers, because I don't think they were necessarily able to retain the exact same recipes that were with Popularity. So I think there's been some of that as well, and they're in a situation now where they've recognized they need to just move forward with something completely new.
To add some insight on what you just said, in fact, I just spoke to Popularity's 2.5 weeks ago with Mr. Gass, formerly Mr. Gass, and we were talking about that exact scenario because he was the one that told me about them changing over. And he was telling me a story about he had offered for up to a year to go back and share the experience and share everything, and they kicked him out. They literally kicked him out. They didn't need his help anymore for him to educate them on how to do their pizza the same way. Because again, I used to purchase there once a week and we tried it twice and it was never the same. So we never purchased there again. And I've heard that through other stories. On another note, they removed all the equipment from the building, from what I understand already. And the level of disgustingness that was removed out of there just from cleanliness was a big issue as well, from what I've heard. So, and that was from firsthand experience of people that removed the equipment. So I'm like, even if they bring it in a franchise.
And yeah, and I think that's, as much as there could potentially be, I would just caution this committee that we're really here to look at the application from the standpoint of the property.
Yeah.
And there's certainly been past applications where I think maybe concerns have been expressed about the bankability, right, of the applicant. And that's really not the intent of this program. And there are certainly other channels to express maybe those concerns. If there are valid concerns with that property, I would certainly, encourage that to be looked into. But from this standpoint, I think we really need to look at the property itself and what this project is going to result in at the end of the day. It's going to completely revitalize a property that has been a significant eyesore in our downtown long before I don't know how long before my time, but I know when I came in 2018, it was an eyesore. So I think it really, it supports what the program is intended to do. If you look at it on paper, it fits with the program perfectly. All of the requested renovations are ideal work that is normally supported through a CIP program. And as long as the taxes are brought into current standing, everything would be eligible at that point. And that's where I would suggest that the committee try and set that aside and support it from that standpoint, knowing full well that we will certainly be monitoring this and pull back those funds if they, God forbid, became delinquent again.
Is the application in their personal name or in corporation name?
In the corporation,
Corporation name. And is the property owned in the corporation name as well?
yes.
And will they personally secure those loans in addition to the corporation?
They have to provide it, they have to secure the loan through CF.
Okay,
Our security is in the fact that they immediately go back on the taxes if they are defaulted on, if the repayment is defaulted on.
okay.
So we are guaranteed to recover our funds, any loan funds.
Would the committee, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I have one more
Jennifer?
question.
Yep.
Dana, and you may not be able to answer this, but how delinquent are they? Are they just one payment short or are they 4 years short?
That's probably beyond what we can release.
Pardon?
That's beyond what we can release in terms of
Probably.
information.
I thought so, but I thought I'd ask. 'Cause we're all thinking it, right?
Yes.
Would the committee like to put a time limit on payment of taxes so that the CIP money is available for somebody else and the result, in case they don't end up paying the taxes in a timely manner? And then that way our fund would be replenished or
That's a
More
very good
available.
point as
Yeah.
well, that once these funds are committed, they're sitting out, they're
Yeah.
committed, right? And it also affects new applicants being able
Yeah.
to come in.
So if you wanted to make it, let's say either October 31st or November 30th, that gives
That's what I was-
60 or 90 days.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I'd say 60 days, because you said 30 days to get the loan,
yeah.
30 days to pay it.
I'd feel more comfortable, in my opinion, if we did something like that as a committee, because I know it's going back to council too, so there's going to be a little bit more conversation about this as well, so. But yeah, I definitely feel like that, you put a motion on the table or amend the recommendation.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'm just looking at the recommendation that does read in full under special conditions, and I believe that would fall.
That could be that special condition, yeah.
Okay.
Unless the committee would like to add that in the actual motion, but my interpretation is that would fall under special.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Motion carried.
There is an agreement that needs to be signed between the town and the property owners. We will absolutely ensure that that condition is built right into that.
Thank you, Dana. Item 5.5 is PAC Report 19-2024 regarding a CIP application for 278 King Street West. The recommendation reads that the Planning Advisory Committee approves the Community Improvement Program application 2024-17 in full for 278 King Street West under the downtown area to a maximum of $5,000 in non-repayable property improvement grant funding and up to the greater of $1,000 or 10% of applicable permit fee. Can I have a mover and seconder for discussion? Leanne? James? Dana?
Thank you. You to the committee. But this application is coming from Quality Creations, a downtown business that is essentially a multi-vendor artisan market. So they have a number of different vendors that produce items that are sold through that store. And they've been there for a few years now and have been working to raise the capital to install a new fascia signage. They've applied window signage to date, but this has been a big priority for them. So they are at a point where they were ready to move forward and have submitted an application for funding, requesting up to a maximum of $5,000 in the non-repayable property improvement grant funding and $1,000 in permit fees. And they meet the eligibility requirements. There is one, if you're familiar with the property currently has a box lit sign, which is no longer in compliance with our new sign guidelines. And in conversation with the business owner, I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding when it came to the actual placement of their signage. So we're going to, as part of this, we're going to include a condition of approval that the existing box sign needs to be removed. The new sign needs to be installed in the middle of the fascia sign space with exterior lighting installed as well. So at this point, they've put the new sign up underneath the old box sign. And that will need to be remedied for them to receive the funding. And of course, the removal of the box lit sign is the real intent behind these new sign guidelines. We're really trying to phase them out. So we would like to get that removed. There was a request from the business owner for consideration to keep it if they applied some graphics to that portion that evoked, you know, some of the different artisans that were there, you know, a paintbrush, a palette, a sewing needle. You know, I would suggest they're free to do that once that sign is removed. If they wanted to put some sort of a complimentary graphic as part of the sign, that would have to be pre-approved, but it can't be attached to that existing backlit sign. They really need to be removed. So that would be one of the conditions that we would like to include if the committee sees fit to approve.
Any discussion on 5.5? If, I was just looking at what they included for their request. If removing that box light increases, like adds an expense to them that they would need more than, could you see that, them needing more than that
I do
amount?
see there could be a potential.
Yeah,
They're looking at $6,000 now. Their sign is about 2,000 to 2,500. They have to do lighting still, which can be significant. And whether the property owner chooses to remove that at their own expense or expense that back to the business owner, that could also result in an additional expense. So it could be tight. We could be in a situation where, similar to the boutique thrift, we have to come back to the committee and request some additional funds. But I think that's the approach that we would take if the business owner does find themselves in a shortage situation.
Dana, did you say the sign's already up?
It is, yes.
I missed that.
Yes, they installed it just this week
Underneath,
underneath the old box sign. Yes, that is currently blank. It just has a
Okay.
face on it.
and they wanted to add like the paintbrush to the box
The
sign?
box, they were hoping to maybe keep that to avoid having to remove that. And upon consultation of bylaw building and just looking back on our sign bylaw and design guidelines, I just don't see any way that we could approve it without setting a dangerous precedent for others. And the CIP program is, you know, these signs are supposed to be a really good example. And if you refer to our sign guidelines, we include examples of those downtown signs in there as a reference for people to say, this is what you want to strive for. And especially if we're providing funding, the sign really needs to, you know, match what we're trying to achieve from a signing perspective and be something that we can be proud to share as an example.
so should we note in the minutes that if they have to come back because of the special condition, that we would relook at at adding some additional funds to their request?
Or is the rule that you can always top up?
They'd have to come back with a separate request to the committee for a top up, and then it would be the decision of the committee at that time. You know, if the committee wanted to endorse that option as part of their discussion, I don't see any issue with that. It would certainly be favorable if the same committee was sitting when they came back again. But it wouldn't bind this committee to that either. It would still be looked at as a separate application.
Okay. Anyone else? All in favor? Motion carried. Item 5.6 is PAC Report 20-2024 regarding a CIP application for 440-446 King Street West. The recommendation reads that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the Community Improvement Program application 2024-18 in full under special conditions for 440-446 King Street West under the downtown area to a maximum of $22,000 in non-repayable property improvement grant funding and a maximum of $100,000 in loan funding repayable at 0%, not exceeding 50% of eligible costs, up to the greater of $1,000 or 10% of applicable permit fees, and an amount to be determined under the tax increment grant category. Can I have a mover and a seconder for discussion? Deanne and James? Dana?
Thank you. Through you to the committee. This is the final application before you this evening, and I did allude to this one earlier when we were discussing the 178 King Street East. This is the subsequent application that we received from the same property owner. The property is located at 440-446 King Street West. It's immediately across the street from the Coast Guard, just west of 16426, just to familiarize the group a bit. And this property, again, has been owned for several years by this owner. They have completed significant renovations to the residential portions to allow for occupancy once again. The entire building was vacant. I'm not sure for how long, but for many years. And they have completed the work to at least get the residential portions reoccupied. The one remaining aspect is the ground floor commercial and residential unit. There's a ground floor residential unit that was a formal commercial unit that's been converted to residential, as well as one remaining commercial unit. And the building department, there is an existing work order that's been issued for that commercial portion. There's some work that's required, fire separation, some plumbing work that needs to be done to actually get it into an occupiable state. And the building owner's requesting support through the CIP program, loan and grant support in full to support those renovations, as well as some other planned upgrades, including a new entrance, some new siding on the ground store, as well as some brick repointing and roof replacement. So the building itself still requires significant renovations. Roof replacement will definitely protect it from future damage and preserve the existing occupancy that they've been able to secure. And as I mentioned, they're very similar to the other property. There are some outstanding property taxes affiliated with this. This commercial property has been vacant for many years. I've had many conversations with the property owner in trying to encourage them to pursue CIP funding so that we can get this commercial property back into a rentable state. There was a tenant that tried to rent it a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because of the work order. And it would be a really good filler in that area of the downtown to help kind of bridge that gap between Once at 426 and Katarina's and the rest of the business district. It's a prime property. If you've ever been in there, it's got great potential to accommodate any sort of business. So again, we're recommending full approval in the hopes of getting this property restored and preserved into the future and to occupy a new business once again, with the exception that the property taxes would need to be brought into good standing. And again, as mentioned, it's really the exact same scenario. This would give the applicant the ability to tap into those loan funds through CF Grenville and apply those towards their taxes to get to a point where they can actually complete the work. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dina. Mayor Shankar?
Yes, thank you. So are they more concerned with just fixing up the retail? Or are they gonna do the residential part as well?
So the full roof replacement, and the one residential apartment on the west side, on the ground floor, will be fully renovated as well. The second and third story residential have been renovated and are fully occupied.
Oh, they are from,
Yeah.
sorry, I missed that.
So it's just the remaining ground floor units that haven't been done, as well as some of the other building exterior work. There is some repointing as well of the brick and the roof replacement.
Do you know how many apartments are in the building?
I don't, I should have known that.
There's 7.
7? Okay.
What is it, 7 or 8?
Thank you.
Question?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Are any of the apartments, whether it be at Papalari's or this, are they owner occupied? Do they live in any
Not
of
to my
those?
knowledge, I can't verify that 100%. This property, I know they don't live there. I'm not 100% sure about,
Papalari's. And so we don't know if they're renting out, jumping back to Papalari's, renting out and it's occupied upstairs, do we? Or is it tenanted?
I don't know the answer to that question, no, but I could certainly find out for the committee.
You know,
what kind of occupancy state.
because they're empty or occupied is very important, and owner occupied too.
I doubt very much she lives there.
I don't believe so, but I wouldn't
There's
want
a car there.
No, nor do I. Any cars. Hmm. Just making an observation, when you going back to your statement of it was being attempted to rent it out commercially, I remember that time frame when it was occupied with many items. So it goes back to my question of the owner's state of businessmanship or business personship. Why would they allow someone to occupy something there whenever it wasn't, there were still outstanding work orders and rent it out to a prospective employee when the owner clearly knew there was outstanding work orders to begin with? And in fact, I know that owner purchased that property knowing there was many outstanding work orders, including the primary one, the fire, when they purchased that property. So again, it goes to the state of the owner's business experience.
And, you know, I won't say there aren't concerns, at least based on the previous sign issues that we've had with that property. And that's why we're being very cautionary and requesting that the committee include these additional conditions so that we can ensure that it does the program justice.
Dina, do we know how long Jackie Benedict has owned this property?
We could certainly confirm in a very momentarily.
Okay.
Can we put the same stipulation on this one?
Gonna suggest that as well with the taxes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that the outstanding work orders will be completed before any newer projects are gonna be started.
That would be a yes. Yeah, I do believe I referenced that in the report. If not, we would certainly include that as a condition.
That would have to be it. Am I assuming it's the fire, the primary one's the fire still? And that's been the way for 4 years, 5 years probably.
And I do
Or COVID.
believe that this property owner has been actively working to get to that point.
That's good.
I don't think it's a lack of desire. I think it's been a lack of capital to date.
Mhm.
And I think they are at a point where they're prepared to at least move forward.
So that being said, they purchased the Populares property after they've purchased that property. So why didn't they use the funds to renovate the current property, bring it up to standard is my question. Right there, that's the biggie right there. They had the funds, they gave it to Populares, purchased the property there instead of completing the work orders on their other property on the main street. They took on another project.
Just to go back to your earlier question, this property was purchased in 2020.
Okay.
And to the other point, that's something I can't speak to.
Yep.
And again, I don't, you know, it could have just been a matter of being able to tap into mortgage financing versus just a loan to proceed with some renovations.
Yeah.
Because it could be very different types of financing that we would have been looking at.
Well, both properties could use an overhaul, that's for sure.
Yes.
And I think we're all feeling it around the table, in my opinion, that there is some red flags here and some caution, and staff have basically said that they're going to be on top of this owner and making sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. So something to set our mind at ease a little bit. And it does say in the report that they have to finish the inside renovations.
Yeah.
Meet up to the town requirements.
And there is Rooney Engineering did up these specs, so obviously they had some money to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people jump into ownership, not realizing that they may not qualify for traditional funding when it comes right down to it. And sometimes they don't even know what it is that they've actually bought. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to do this, and that. So there's a lot of sometimes
Unknowns.
unknown.
Or maybe, you know, you can easily underestimate what it might take to address a work order or, you know. But I do say, you know, that's a very good point, Chair Young, is the fact that they have gone to the expense of commissioning actual engineered drawings for the project. we've had other applicants in the past who have not done that and have come in just with a plan and they're gonna get all this sorted out later and, you know, and 9 times out of 10, it comes together, right? But I think this certainly is very encouraging to see as well, that they are at that point where they're prepared to, they've already done some pre-work, which is certainly a good sign.
Okay, so if we include the special condition about 60 days, 60 or 90, 60 days for tax payment, and then the, making sure the outstanding work orders are completed prior to any new work being done. I don't know, they may have to do a roof first if that's legal.
Yeah, like, what I would suggest is that those work orders have to be addressed as part of this work.
Well, they can't rent it out until it's done.
Yeah, they can't get occupancy until it is, so.
Can I just ask a question just for curiosity? Was that Sears in there at one point? Is it?
Somebody told me it used to be
Yes.
Sears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catalog store
Mhm.
before it went to dollar store.
What was a dollar store? Okay.
No, they transferred the Sears outlet to the,
Oh, I see. It moved, okay.
the little dollar store there.
Wasn't it in Prescott Place at one point?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's right.
It moved around a bit.
Full circle.
Any other discussion? No. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 5.7 is a CIP financial record. Our CAO treasurer, Matthew Armstrong, will speak.
Much, Madam Chair. So as you can see, we have kind of gone back that expanded the list a little bit to include applicant address, things like that, as well as the project costs and investment. So that's what I'm trying to do this evening. We are at a point now where we've exhausted all the funds available in the plan for this year, but depending if more come in, then we always look to ones that are currently open to see if they're completing, if where they're going to use all the funds. So as we move forward for the next 4 months, that's the approach that we'll take. And if there is additional funding, then we'll certainly bring that forward to the committee and we'll consider.
Thank you, Matthew. Does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring forward? No? And there are no questions from the media. Item 8 is adjournment. I have a recommendation that the Planning Advisory Committee meeting is adjourned. The time is 5:48. Do I have a mover and seconder for the motion, Susan? James, all in favor?